Hi there, my name is Adam Boxer. I'm Head of Science at Totteridge Academy, and in this video I'm going to show you how we use OneNote. So our department uses OneNote pretty much exclusively for, in pretty much every single lesson, science lesson you go into in our department, you'll see OneNote being used. There's a number of reasons for that I'll explain in a minute, but first I just want to kind of give you a brief overview of what a notebook looks like. So OneNote is basically, it's an app that allows you to make a notebook. So in this case, I can see over here that I'm in the TTA 21 to 22 notebook. These are all the various sections of my notebook that I have, and each section will have pages. So with my year 9s, for example, I'm doing B1 cells. The first thing that we normally do is we paste the unit booklet into OneNote. So the booklet, which is what the students get, that's this Word document over here, goes to the students, and that gets pasted kind of vertically. And OneNote does that all automatically. It takes about 3 seconds. You just insert it and it's done. And what you can see is that as time goes on, this notebook builds up. So over here, you should be able to see that I've annotated, just let it load for a sec. There we go. I've annotated the booklet. I've written titles, I've written learning objectives, I've done some explanations over here, and again, more kind of explanations. This will have been done on mini whiteboards, so I will have drawn this out, and first students will have kind of written, I will have put the arrows in, students would have written what the things are, and then we would push them and ask them for functions as well. Anything you see in purple is review. So this, for example, will have been a kind of sat down task. So students would have done this by themselves. I would have just asked them to name A, B, C, D, F, G, and then potentially go and give functions of those as well. Sorry, it's loading a bit slow. Whenever OneNote's on Zoom, it tends to be a bit sluggish. In the classroom, it's normally absolutely fine. But when you are recording as well, it can be a bit painful. So yeah, anything you see in purple is review. And then what I can do as well is I can add extra questions. So here I've added some extra questions for students to do, and I can type those up whenever I like. Here is some more over there that I might have pasted in from somewhere else or written on the spot or whatever. Again, anything you see in purple is review. So the students will have done the booklet questions themselves. So that's like questions 3 to 19 here that you can see, and then should be able to see that, yeah, you can look, you can see that we reviewed them here from question 3 all the way down to 19. So essentially the way lessons work is everyone's notebook is a bit idiosyncratic, but generally the lessons are vertical and horizontal. So vertical is progress in the booklet, and then horizontal is when you're trying to explain something from the booklet. So this is a booklet that I've only just recently started with year 9s, but again, you can see that, so for example, in this lesson where we're doing calculations, that we will have started working on our magnification calculations and looking at over here and looking at kind of an experiment with the microscopes, and then we were doing unit conversions, which get started here and then built here. All of this was on mini whiteboards. So they did this example first, then they did this example, then they did that, and then only then did they start doing, they did some questions from the booklet, and then because I wanted to push them a bit further, I just typed up some more questions there and then on the spot, and we would have gone over all of those, and the kind of review of that will be, buried somewhere in here. Now, part of the reason why we like, so I've already given you like a few really good reasons to like OneNote, and the main thing, one of the main things is that it's super organic. So we're not forced down any particular road. Like what I see when I see people using PowerPoint is that they, that like the next slide comes up and like that's what you do, and it limits your ability to respond to the class in front of you. So whenever we have an issue like students don't understand something or they need a little bit more practice, and we can just go over that, no problem. For going over student work, it's really, really nice because it means that you can like write that with them rather than just being verbal about it or having like pre-organized answers that have to appear on the screen, that kind of thing. It's just clunky and it's stilted and it limits your ability to respond to your class. One of the other main kind of strengths of OneNote is that it sort of forces us to be, in the way that we explain stuff and the way that we model things, to be, again, organic is the right word, but we like to talk about starting from a blank canvas. And the reason why we start from a blank canvas is because for us, the kind of two most important principles of an explanation. We know how important modeling is. We know, Rose and Shine, cognitive science. We know that modeling is incredibly important. The way you explain stuff is incredibly important. And the two things that we're always wanting to do is make sure students are paying attention to the thing that we want them to pay attention to. By starting from a blank canvas, there's nothing else for them to look at. So, when I start drawing a cell, I'm saying, look at this bit, look at this bit, look at this bit. There's nothing extraneous there. There's nothing extra for them to be focused on. So that's a massive, massive bonus. And also, we like to be able to really regulate the flow of information, to say that, I'm going to just start with this little bit, then I'm going to move to this little bit, then I might ask a couple of questions and then move to this little bit. And part of that, again, is being organic and responsive to the needs of your class, which a lot of the time you can't really do on a PowerPoint, because it's just like, the information is there. Students read it, they're looking here, they're looking there, looking wherever. You're talking while they're reading while you're talking. It's just like, there's no flow there. It doesn't feel right. So that's why we don't use slides. Now, obviously, you can, everything that I just spoke about, you can use PowerPoint for. You can be organic with PowerPoint. You can be responsive. You can make sure that you're starting with a blank canvas as well. It's just harder and less likely. So we use OneNote because it kind of forces us to make those decisions in the classroom that are free, organic, and then the sense of flow to our lessons. So just to quickly show you through another couple of notebooks. So let's have a look at, so I did energy, for example, with my year 9s. And actually in this one, I started even before I opened the booklet. So I wanted to talk to them about energy stores. I wanted to preface and front the entire unit with a discussion about energy stores. And what I could do is, sorry, it's being really annoying at the moment. And again, it really hates Zoom. So what I did is I sort of introduced the idea of stores and transfers, and I did a different scenario to illustrate each one, and then kept hopping back to a list that I then created as time went on. So these lists here, so of the stores, and then the transfers, which I think I did a bit lower down, here, I kept hopping back to them. So I started with a blank list and then did that and then came back and then did that and then came back and then did that and then came back. And that kind of allows me to really build a sense of narrative and flow in a way that students sort of understand the way the individual parts make up the whole. So I'm saying to them, there are these stores, I'm going to tell you what they are. And then we do one and then we go back to the list, and it's just like, it's such an integrative way of doing it. It really helps students ground their knowledge. And then only then do I get started on the booklet, which is now taking forever, as mentioned, to load. So is this one going to come back to us? Who knows? I do promise you, this doesn't happen in lessons. Okay, so let's just move on. Anyway, we'll do let's have a look at some year 10 ones. So year 10, I'm currently doing some really, sorry, give me a sec. So with year 10, we're doing like a really fast-paced booklet that kind of reviews a lot of stuff they've already learned. And again, you can see that, like, what I'll have done is I'll have drawn these out in the lesson, and then I'll have asked students to use their mini whiteboards to label them, or through, cold call or whatever. Students will have been telling me what's going on with all of these different models. It's just so easy, it's so organic, and I can change things however I like, whenever I like. I can give them more practice if they need. We can go over stuff. I can draw tables. It's very free, very easy. Here I've pasted their starter, which we use carousel learning for. So that just goes straight into here, which is a really nice way, again, to kind of meld classwork and homework together. Again, like tons of examples, tons of work. And here, this is really cool as well, because what you can see is my thought process as I went. So I wanted to illustrate the difference between elements, compounds, and mixtures. So we did examples, we did another example, we did another example, and then I was a bit worried that they actually didn't understand it, and I had to do another couple of examples. So I didn't move on until I was 100% sure that they were ready. You can see here, that's only then, right here, page 7, I asked them to do the questions. And so it just means science on your own. So it's quiet, independent practice they just get on with by themselves. And you can see just the number of examples that I did. And that was specifically because, on mini whiteboards, because I wasn't sure they'd quite got the idea. So I had to slowly vary the examples and give them a bit more in that kind of we step before they were ready for the you. And then again, you can see that like here, I've got the booklet, I've annotated it, I've written all the things that students need to know and the review. And again, we do all of that in purple. So that's really clear that that's what I've done here. Let's look at one more. Oh, actually, so let's make things a bit more complicated. So I've also got here in the I've got 2 year 12 ones here. This is actually my year 13s now. But if we look at this one, this is a shared notebook. So this is a class notebook which we use via Teams. So we get set up on Teams. Every class is set up on Teams, and then you can make a specific Teams notebook. The difference between this kind of notebook and the other notebooks is that the other notebooks, the students don't access them. They can't see them, like they do them in lesson, but that's it. These ones, the students themselves can access. And there's a number of different ways they can access them. These are the students that we've got in the class. And the main thing that they have to look at is the content library. So there are bits and pieces that we can do together. So in the collaboration space, they can write their own stuff, and in their own areas here, they can write their own notes and things. We tend not to use that now, but we used it a lot during lockdown. So if I ask students to draw something, they just draw it in here and I'll be able to just see it immediately. But for now, what we do is we just use the content library. And basically, these are my notes from the lessons, right? So every lesson is done in the notebook like this. And again, questions, models, diagrams, explanations, mini whiteboard work, questions and review, more questions. This was all done, or we started this on mini whiteboard, they finished it at home, it looks like. Again, this is like my basic explanation of why the word geometry exists as a word. And then some practice work that we did, mini whiteboards, mini whiteboards, mini whiteboards, and then they did some free practice themselves. And again, this is how we kind of reviewed it, and you can see like just the quantity of work. This will be a couple of lessons worth going on there. Now the reason why we like it this way is because our students in year 12 do not write any notes. There is no need for them to write any notes. I have a bank of Chromebooks in my lab, and at the beginning of the lesson they go and they get the Chromebooks and they sit down, they log on, and they access this notebook via their Chromebook. What it means is that, and what I do is I'll explain and they can see on their screen if they want, or they can just watch mine. But then when I put the questions up, so I put the questions up on my board, and they can use their OneNote to go back into the notes if they need support or help. And because everything's there, it's like having a virtual textbook in front of you, but it's one that's tailored to you and to the stuff that you've learned. It's not difficult to go hunting for what you need. So if I've asked a question, like for example here, I've asked a question about the equations to show the effect of CFCs on ozone. So the students know that's from halogen alkanes. If they can't remember how to do that, so they just open up the other page in the notebook, and then they can go back and they can see the notes about, here it is. This is when we did UV and ozone. Now, a couple of other interesting things that you might notice is that we pasted in things like exam questions. Again, very quick, very easy. They just go straight into the notebook and you can work over those. I can also put in student work itself. So because I have OneNote on my phone, if I want, or I can use a visualizer if I don't have my phone with me, whatever, I'm not on the Wi-Fi, it doesn't really matter. I can just, if I see work of the students and I want to put that onto the board to go over it, instead of like longhand writing out all the answers myself, I can just take a photo and that will just paste straight into the booklet, into the notebook. So as soon as this loads, you should be able to see, because I'm pretty sure I did an example of this just now. Yeah, so here it is. You can see that I've pasted the students' work in. I've annotated it, I've written about where they've got marks, where they haven't got marks, I've added labels, I've added bullet points, that kind of stuff. And again, it's just a really nice way of like blending your teacher work with what the students have themselves done. So that in a nutshell is OneNote and how we use it. Please do feel free to be in touch to ask any questions that you've got about how we go about doing it. I've also written a couple of blogs about why we specifically use OneNote and the advantages that it has over other platforms, and also about the tech that you need. So we're really lucky because we have tablets with a screen and a pen that we can just write on, no problem. But if you want to use OneNote and you don't have access to that, that's fine, because you can get what's called a graphics tablet, which is like a black square. It's about this big and they're like £30, and that just plugs straight in and you can write on that and then the pen appears on the screen. So that's one way of doing it as well. So there are plenty of ways around it. It's just incredibly, incredibly powerful platform, it also means that we can share stuff. So, you know, if you've got like a newly qualified teacher or first year Teach First or United Learning Training program, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. You can just share your notebook with them so they can see the way that you've modeled it and the way that you've taught it. And from that kind of reverse engineer their own route. And it means that they're really getting inside your head in a way that they don't if you just like give them some slides. Cool. So anyway, thank you for listening, and please do be in touch if you have any questions.